Hello, I'm Toycat, and you are rich. You might not believe that because you might think I don't have a fancy mansion with a pool out front, but let me assure you that on the global scale at least, you are very rich. The average income worldwide is about $4,500 US, and I guarantee if you watch this video and you have a job, you earn more than that per year. In fact, I guarantee that even though you probably earn less than the average for your given country, you might earn, the average salary in Poland, even though you live in Australia, I guarantee that on the worldwide scale, you're doing pretty well. And given that we're living in the richest point in history, that means you're not just doing well on a worldwide scale, you're doing well historically speaking. You are one of the richest people to ever live, and so that's why it's kind of depressing when you hear that 1 in 10 British people, about 9%, I don't know why 9% is 1 in 10, but 1 in 10 British people have no savings whatsoever, and even more depressing, a third of British people have less than £600 in savings. And so this is something when people hear, they go, oh my god, that sucks so bad. Those people they must be going through something so bad if they cannot save whatsoever. And that's an easy way out in my opinion, because when you look, if we look at the US data, which is much more in-depth because for some reason the Federal Reserve actually goes into this, you can actually see bank account balance by income. So you can see of the people who do save money, how much money do you have based on what you earn? And obviously looking at this graph more closely, you can see the more you earn, the more you save. Wow, what a shocker. But what's more shocking to me is the fact that outside of the 90th to 100th percentile, the very richest people in society, the top 10%, outside of those percentiles, most people don't significantly increase their savings as they earn more. Again, admittedly, like when you're in the bottom 20%, we can argue, well, it's really hard to save at that level, so saving more than $800 is hard. But what I don't get is how when people go from being a 30th percentile to 50th percentile, so the middle of this range to the middle of this range, which if we use this handy chart, you can see the 30th percentile right now earns about $37,000, whereas the 50th percentile earns about $63,000. So when your salary just under doubles, you earn $26,000 more every single year. Your average savings don't go up by $26,000, they go up by $2,300. And this isn't per year, this isn't savings put in per year, this is total savings. You earn, off the full $23,000 extra dollars you get, you put not even 10% in savings one year, and then never put any more in again. This is the interesting reality of how savings actually work. People can say all they like that people don't save because they cannot, all their expenses are eaten up by things, but actually the person who was earning, the $37,000 was, saving just enough on average, but then when they got double the money, instead of spending that money on savings and having more money put aside for the future, they instead decided, what if I had a slightly nicer car? What if I had a slightly nicer house? What if I bought some more, and then whatever things are in their life. People have something called lifestyle inflation, and that's a whole interesting topic for its own. But what this interestingly means is that if you look at the change from 2016 to 2019, which is the data set right here, you can see that therefore, on average, the people who have gone better at saving are on the lower end of the graph. This makes no sense because as a percentage of their income, say, your expenses are always highest when you earn the least. If you earn, what's 10%? If you earn $14,000 a year, you're going to need to spend most of that money on existing in the world, right? Spending rent and spending transportation, etc. Whereas when you earn, like the 70th percentile, $100,000 a year, you can spend all of that. But it's really, it's a lot harder to. You can't argue you need to spend $100,000 a year. You want to spend $100,000 a year. And indeed, most people do, because people earning $100,000 a year on average have just $20,000 in savings and then nothing else whatsoever, which is why why the stat here is so shocking. These people have grown their savings by just 1% over the last 3 years versus the bottom 20% who have grown it by 33%. This is a big failing on the behalf of pretty much all of these groups, right? I mean, the bottom 40% are doing better on average, but everyone else is doing a bad job at saving. And so why does it even matter? Why am I making some grand point about why saving is so important? Surely this is just picking on people who don't have any savings, because savings is just putting money aside now to then have it later. And you might, if you are the sort of person who is above the average on savings, you might think, no, I've learned the lesson. The more you save now, the more you get in the future because of interest. So here is a fun fact. If you put away £5,000, dollars, didgeridoos, whatever you want per year, it doesn't matter as long as it's the same currency, then you grow that at 7% interest, then $5,000 a year will create $500,000 in just, what is that, 30 years, because you're earning 7% interest. And this is the stat that they even teach you in school. They're like, wow, isn't compound interest amazing? But we always say interest. We say the word interest, which implies that a bank will pay you 7% to put your money in there. This is not a real thing. Fun fact, this is the more realistic graph. You put away £5,000 every year, you save so hard, and what do you get at the end? You get about £170,000. And your actual return on that, you know, the amount you put in versus they put in, is you put in 150,000, because 5,000 a year, and the bank only puts in, what, 20-ish thousand pounds? You barely get anything, and in fact, inflation has gone up so much that you actually have less money than when you started if you save now. So the reason that looking at this graph and saying these people are saving less is not so disastrous for our world is because of the fact, sorry, I thought we froze that. The reason it's not so disastrous for the world is because of the fact that actually you probably shouldn't be saving in the first place. Saving is a really good start and explains to people you save and then you build compound interest over time is important, but the much more important thing to explain is that, like, actually 7% interest doesn't exist in the real world anymore. This is what putting your money in the bank account looks like, whereas putting your money in this is just global stock market returns for the all-country world IMI index. Basically, all shares across the world, if you invested in GBP, this is an actual fund you can buy. The fund buys all the shares, and then you buy a percentage of all those shares, basically. If you were to do that, you might hear about, like, oh yeah, I wouldn't put my money in stocks though. You know, putting my money in a bank account and getting 7% a year, like you do on Neopets, that's the way you want to do it, because yeah, I want to make the compound interest, but I don't want to risk my money, because imagine you start putting you save so hard to get £5,000 a year to save, and then what happens is 1999 comes along and you lose 10% of your money, then 15% of your money, then 25% of your money. The net loss of that would be you lose about half of all the money you put in, so your £5,000 has gone down to £2,500, and now, oh my god, you've lost half your money. A lot of people at this point are like, I'm never touching stocks again. You might even pull your money out. However, the reality is even though it lost 50% here, if you look here, it gained 20%, then 10%, then 25%, and then about 10% for 2 years in a row. And although you would probably take quite a few years to get back all of the loss that you made, the reality is over time, over the long run of history, the average return is about 10%. There's a much more interesting piece of advice in here about how 10% is that there are very few years which are about average. Most years do really well or really poorly, but the years that do well tend to outperform the years that do poorly, and there are more years that do well than years that do poorly, which is why the average is coming close to about 10%. It depends on the market. In Europe, it's a lot like European stock markets do poorly by average. US stock markets seem to do exceptionally well, getting 8 to 9 to 10%. In the UK, it's something like 7% on average if you put your money in British stock markets. And so instead of 7% interest, imagine this saying 7% investment returns. Your graph won't look as nice and smooth like this. It's going to have a lot more bumps to it, but putting away £5,000 a year at 7% interest will still give you £500,000 in 30 years, or as is one of my favorite graphs. By the way, also the other there's probably an important fact to mention. This is actually what investment gains look like. In most years, you gain something like this. In some years, you lose some, and in some years, you lose a disastrous proportion of your investment. This is a US stock return, so it's not going to match the previous graph perfectly. But still, if you take the average over the entire history of the idea of stock markets, which admittedly is only 150, 200 years, if you take the entire history, the average return is about 7 to 8%. And so that means, using this graph right here, this is the fun fact everyone knows, saving £1,000 every single month for 24 years will give you £1 million, because even though you only put in, what is that, $250,000 roughly, the compound interest of all of those years of going up at 8% means you actually make £1 million. This is the difference between saving and not saving, because here's the worst bit about this graph. If you want to, should I load up Paint real quick? Let's load up Paint. So here's the worst bit about this graph. If we just, I'm doing this kind of on the fly. The worst bit about this graph is not only is it that you can make a lot of money okay, so let's zoom in. There we go. Not only are you making more money by saving that, but you're also, by having the money yourself and being prepared rather than lending money, you're on the good side of interest. Every time you borrow money to You know, like, I don't know, car loans are the common one and for my American viewers. Every credit card debt, whatever it is, when you borrow money, you're on the wrong side of this. You're allowing someone else to turn their $250,000 over 25 years into a real million. And so your money, if you are in consistent forms of debt, let's say you have £1,000 a month in spare money, which, you know, and just let's call it spare money, because I know no one thinks they have spare money, but you have £1,000 a month that theoretically could be saved, but you instead you put it on some form of credit card. Now your £1,000 a month is shrinking because every month you're not just paying for that, you're paying for the interest, and so your graph slowly shrinks over time, giving you less value from it. In life, there are three types of people, right? Those who save, invest, and are on the positive side of interest, who their money effectively quadruples in value. There are the people who put it away in a savings account, which is not the ideal advice because, again, it just doesn't grow. It just sits there. But at least your $250,000 is worth $250,000 by the end. And then there are people who have $250,000 over their lifetime of theoretical savings, but by, you know, not saving it, by having poor financial discipline, by believing that they are not in any way rich, they are so poor that they physically cannot save. Saving is a rich man's game. Investing is a rich man's game. No one can do these things. They are the people that end up down here. And that is one of the real ways in which, like, I guess your mindset genuinely affects your results. And that is the scary fact, in my opinion, of life, is that there are three paths you can take, and no one really even tells you about it. And we vaguely go over the idea of compound interest in school, but in reality, yeah, again, even right now, I'm going to probably have a lot of comments on this being like, this is insensitive, you're a YouTube multimillionaire, Toycat, and, you know, wish that was true. But, you know, like, you can't relate to the common man and his expenses, and that's true. When this is the graph that really does put aside the fact that how can a normal person save $1,000, £1,000, €1,000 euros every single month? It's just not possible. You can't put 1,000 aside. But here's the thing. If you earn at least 2,000, let's say, because here's the deal. Every single person assumes they need to spend what they do. But here's the crazy fact. If you look at, this is the easiest graph I could find. This is Canadian household spending by income quintile. It's from 2016. It's a terrible graph, but it proves my point. If you are in the top fifth, I guess, top fifth of earners, the top 20%, your average spending every single year is $105,000. If you're in the bottom 20%, your average spending is about $30,000. But the people in the second quintile probably feel like they have to spend their $43,000. The people in the third quintile are like, yeah, you need to spend, what is this, like $20,000 a year on housing. Can you imagine not spending? Oh, it makes me disgust. Can you imagine not having a car? I mean, it's got to be a brand new 2022 model. Imagine not having one. Oh, it would break down all the time if I were to buy a 2019 model car. Oh, yes, I can't imagine this. You know, like, people believe their spending is required, and that's why these videos are always like kind of an attack, right? When you say that you should save more, I don't believe that everyone can jump to £1,000 every single month, but I think that everyone can probably jump to, unless you're in the bottom 10% or 20% in your country, unless you are genuinely earning so little that this represents more than a 50% amount of saving, you should be able to get your savings rate to 10 or 20% of your income. Because here's the deal, every single person in the second quintile, what they could be doing is they could be taking the $13,000 more they spend on average than the lowest quintile, and they could be putting that into something to make money for the future. But instead, they spend it on, is healthcare one of these? Why are they? Isn't healthcare free in Canada? They spend their money on healthcare because they don't even realize that it's government run there. I guess private healthcare? Maybe it's like eyes and dental or whatever, I'm guessing, like in the UK. Personal care, you know, how much do you spend on personal care, rich people? You get the point here, like, you add all these things that just seem like they're essential, but they're not essential if people can do with less, right? And there is a genuine question here about, like, well, in life, I live to enjoy things. If I spent less than, what is this, a year on food? That's like $6,000 a year on food or something. If I spent less than $6,000 a year on food, then, you know, life would not be worth living. I mean, without a Netflix subscription, I would literally kill myself. But here's the real scoop on that. The actual, answer to this is that in general, in general, you probably could save a bit more. I have to end this video because I got a little phone call. But here's the other thing I want to mention is even if you can't save, 5,000 a year, which is just under 500 a month, by the way, which is very hard. If you can't save 20% of your income or 10% of your income, just anything more than you can right now, there are programs of the government where they effectively do that for you. And yeah, I think this is really important. I got a lot of dings everywhere. So I'm going to quickly say thank you for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it or found it interesting. Just remember, investing is important, and I'll see you in the next one. Or, maybe I won't. Also, yeah, this can be you. It'll be you real soon, trust me. But yeah, I gotta go. This is really important.